Hey guys, this is Survey Teardown 31 of the 50 Surveys Project. If you're new here, that means 50 survey teardowns in 50 days, and today's Teardown 31 is from Service Ontario. Service Ontario is a government agency, sort of like a single point of contact for a whole bunch of government services. I was on this site looking to renew my health card. I scrolled to the bottom and I saw this gem right here. If you've seen the last Teardown 30, if you haven't, check it out. I am obsessed with these one question surveys. They are so not burdensome. They're focused, they're tight, they're easy to answer, easy to inject in a user or a customer experience, get the insight you need, and then hop right out. You're not running into survey fatigue. And you'll get much higher response rate, right? Because you're like inserted into an existing experience, especially if someone is not able to find what they're looking for, which is common in a site like this where there's a ton of information. It's just because it's that single point of contact, there's a lot going on here. So to ask a question like this is very, very useful and thoughtful, and probably gets a lot of response rate. A high response rate. All right. So I love this question. Was super excited. I clicked over to it. Let's hop on over. Rate our service. Service Ontario locations. All right. So the survey itself, I was curious to see, it says like, tell us about your experience so we can continue improving this page. One thing I want to say before we jump into that survey itself, this is such a great question because it's about me, the user, right? And then this is helpful rationale. This part was kind of like, I feel like this is vague and I feel like it's broad and general, and that means, at least to me, alarm bells in my mind, like this is going to be a lengthy survey. But the rationale is great, so we can continue improving this page. Or even this website, but this page helps, right? Because it's like speaking to this specific experience that I am having right now on this page. So presumably the questions will be page specific or broad, because tell us about your experience sounds like there's going to be a bunch of open text questions, but let's check it out. Okay, so how satisfied were you overall with the experience on this webpage? This is great. You want to start general, then go specific. Start with a general to like anchor where they're at, and then follow it up. Ideally, you start general and then you skip logic to get even more specific based on their response. So you might ask them about why they're dissatisfied or about why they're satisfied accordingly. But for ease and convenience, you can also skip that entirely. Keep them general in language, but more specific as you go down the page. So for example, starting with like, how satisfied were you overall, and then getting into elements about their, or factors that contributed to their satisfaction or dissatisfaction. So this is fine. I'm personally like not a fan of the 1 to 5 point scales. I think that there are more concrete measures that we can use. But this is like a pretty common, pretty standard. You know, we can always do like a 3-pointer as opposed to the 5-point, so that we can take out the vary and say dissatisfied or neutral, satisfied. So we cut out like the varying degrees, especially if we're not actually using this information in the survey. Like, all we want to know is, it was a bad or is it good? Are we really going to take less action if it's like a 2 versus a 1? So just being really mindful and deliberate with the scales here. But this is a familiar one, so that's fine. Very common. How much do you agree with the following statement? It was easy to find the web page I was looking for. Okay, so this kind of threw me off at first. Like, web page I was looking for? I thought they were going to be asking me about this specific page. I guess this kind of is. I wasn't necessarily looking for that web page. So this is where you want to think more in like the user experience in their language. It was easy to find the information I was looking for is different to finding a web page. I'm not really concerned about like the site architecture unless it interrupts and unless it interferes with my experience and makes it difficult to find what I want. This is like I would change this like, do you agree with, or to what extent do you agree with the following statement? Or do you agree with the following statement? And then you can also make it just like an easy yes, no, as opposed to, again, a rating scale. I think there's like, it can feel like I'm collecting rich data because I have a rating scale and it's more robust and it's like, more in depth because it's a 5-point scale versus a yes or no. But is the nuance helpful? Like the difference between strongly agree and agree, how important is that for you? Is it going to change the decisions and actions that follow? Chances are probably not. You just want to know, hey, was this easy or was it not, to find. So user language here, and really just picking a scale that actually makes sense and works, gets the data you need, and doesn't get kind of muddied in like more complicated data unnecessarily. And that's not to say that this is the wrong question for them. Again, I don't know what their goal is or how their numbers are, and need to look internally. But being really deliberate with that choice, like do not be afraid to approach something simply. If it is only a yes or no, if your action is only going to be one way or another, a yes or no question will suffice. How much do you agree with the following statement? The quality of service provided met my expectations. So first thing off the bat, if they're going to have both of these as like how much do you agree, let's group them together just so that you only have to ask it once. And this could be like a 2A, 2B, and you can indent this. And then you just have like, it just visually makes it easier so I don't feel like I'm reading the same thing again when it's like, the fact that it's repeated can make me think like, oh, is this a different question? Because why wouldn't they group it? So it just makes it easier in terms of formatting. I'm using my hands while I talk and I just hit my mic, so that's fun. All right, the quality of service provided met my expectations. This is a tad confusing. Quality of service, this implies like I received some service as though there was an in-person. Was there some like actual service that they're talking about? This does not feel like a website experience question. This feels like an actual service experience question. So this doesn't feel like it fits. Just something to think about there. I don't know if they're pointing to something specific here, but yeah, this doesn't feel like it has to do with the UX or the UI of the page itself, or my experience navigating on the site. Last question, how could we improve this web page? Okay, so this is, let me scroll up here, and actually let me go back to here. Tell us about your experience so we can continue improving this page. So this question matches what they're asking, right? They do want to improve the page. And then they ask about how to improve the page. The problem with a question like this is that we're asking a user to speak about the solution when what they know is the problem. This is a very, very common thing that is shows up a lot in interviews as well as in survey questions. The analogy that I've heard from Rob Fitz here that's really great, I believe I've shared this in an earlier teardown, is it's the patient's job to know their problem. It's the doctor's job to diagnose a solution. If the solution doesn't work, the patient can describe what the recurring problem is and the doctor can iterate and identify a new treatment and a new solution. Let the user know and let the user speak to what they know best, which is the problem, which is what was wrong with the webpage. We've asked all about their satisfaction. We've asked about how easy it was to navigate, how easy it was to find what they were looking for. Was this a quality of service? Still confused by this question, that they were expecting. Now let's follow up with like, well, what was wrong? Because this feels like way far ahead. We don't even know what's wrong. And now we're wanting to know how they would improve the page. There's a huge chunk that's missing there. So scrap this question entirely is what I would recommend. And instead, like, go into specifics here. What was interrupting your experience? Like, what was hard to navigate about this page? What was wrong with or negative about your experience? What was missing from the page? Was, what, and then if you still want to ask, like, what could we have done better? Then is a follow-up, right? Like, it's you need to understand the problem before you even talk about the solution. And this question is like jumping way, way ahead. If they identify the problem for you, then both you and them can work together towards identifying a solution. But if you're not clear on what they're experiencing as the problem, and we only know that they've had a dissatisfied experience and they weren't able to find what they were looking for easily, we're still struggling here, right? They might actually recommend things that we can't execute on, but we don't know what our other options are because we don't know what their original problem is. What was the challenge? Like, were they not able to find what they were looking for? Did they navigate and jump through a whole bunch of pages to find it? Did they keep kind of was the site architecture confusing? Was the navigation confusing? Like, we don't know. And there are multiple solutions that we can identify for any particular problem if we are agreed and clear on the problem. So biggest takeaway here, ask your users about what they know, which is the problem that they are bumping up against. And then if you also want to ask them about the solution, cool. But then you can also participate in identifying the solution as well, because you know the constraints of the website and the tech stack and all of that good stuff that you need to comply with for a government agency website. This is great, nice sentiment here. And of course, anonymity of feedback is helpful to protect privacy. So if this is like seemingly an instruction, it seems like I would pop this up top. As an actual like instruction so that people don't have to go back and or actually maybe I would repeat it like right underneath here, because it does have to do with this page, or sorry, with this question, but I might even gloss over it because it just looks like fine print kind of thing. So I would pop it here because there's no way that they're going to be disclosing private information until they get to this question. The nature of the questions prior don't allow it, right, with the rating scale. That is it for today. If you have questions, comments, disagreements, agreements, give me a thumbs up, give me a thumbs down. I'd love your feedback. Drop it in the comments. Whatever your thoughts are, I would love to know. And I will see you back here for Survey Teardown 32. Subscribe so that you are the first to know. And we will check in back then. Bye.